So because I'm kind of a psycho with my ADHD brain, it really helps when I'm able to group things into buckets in my head. And that just helps the chaos up here with my 13 brain cells stay a little bit more organized. With that said, I am really excited to introduce a new series from me via Remint Reality called Learning in Public. I'm going to be putting all of my Blast farming videos and breakdown videos in this series because, as many of you know, I am right there with you. I am still learning and figuring things out, especially on the DeFi side of things. And earlier today, I was actually just reflecting on my overall exposure to Blast and thinking about narrowing focus versus trying to get exposure to everything, just because of capital constraints and also time and attention. And then I kind of realized that the through line with all of the platforms that I've chosen to seriously explore and try to be a power user of, especially the DeFi ones, is that I have the ability to fuck around and find out, but I also have the ability to learn by fire. What I love about Blast and being an active participant so early on in this ecosystem is actually being able to explore a bunch of different verticals. And the skill set and knowledge that I'm learning on Blast actually translates to other ecosystems. For example, me figuring out how to have a profitable liquidity providing strategy on trading pairs on Blast is fundamental knowledge that's going to translate into any other ecosystem I explore in the future. But I also get to benefit from things like native yield and earning points for the Blast airdrop coming in May. This is really a curiosity and risk rewarded mindset. And for me, it's just the icing on top of the cake because the skill set I'm developing in this journey is insanely valuable in itself, especially as we move towards an on-chain future. So with that said, I wanted to give a high-level overview of where my attention currently is, what I'm actively engaging with, and what I'm paying attention to on Blast. And the plan is to follow this video up with more breakdown videos and go into depth on some of these platforms and how exactly I'm using them to farm Blast Gold. As of right now, I've earned about 413 Blast Gold from the first distribution, and since then, I've actually been exploring even more platforms and have deployed even more capital. My gut is telling me that the Blast TGE will be closer to the end of May since we are just now, from the user perspective, as well as the builder's perspective, really starting to get clarity. As of the time that I'm filming this video, we've only seen one Blast Gold distribution. My thought is, once the TGE event occurs, more people are going to flood into the ecosystem. With that said, I still think it's early, so let's go. Farmer hat on. And a reminder, none of this is financial advice. I am not a financial advisor, hence the hat. Do I look like a financial advisor? Because I'm not. Definitely not one wearing this hat. Anyways, with my ADHD brain, I have put my Blast plays into 3 buckets. Bucket 1 is fundamentals. So think lending, liquidity providing, perp dexes, broader narratives, etc. Bucket 2 is culture. These are platforms that fit more in the social-fi community building category. And bucket 3 is degen things, which embodies for me gaming, Gamblify, NFTs, and community plays. There is a little bit of overlap with culture and degen things, but that's just how my brain is thinking about it. So for me right now, the fundamentals bucket is made up of 5 main platforms of focus that I'm on daily. 3 that I have exposure to, but am looking more at a weekly basis, and 1 that's on the watch list because it hasn't launched yet. First is Wasabi. Wasabi is such an interesting play to me because what started off as an NFT perps and options platform on ETH mainnet is now a full asset-backed leverage and margin trading platform on Blast. We also know that Wasabi is going to be bringing 404s over to Blast, which I think positions them so well as a platform to really lean into Blast native assets. I am a liquidity provider on Wasabi, and I also have active open trades. Interestingly enough, the Wasabi earn vaults, I'm basically treating like a bank account. All of my idle capital goes into their vaults, and I'm withdrawing as I deploy. During the first Blast Gold drop, I got about 230 Blast Gold from Wasabi with about 1 ETH of capital deployed across all of their vaults and 16 ETH of trading volume. Next is Blastr and Hyperlock. I'm going to be grouping these 2 platforms together because of how synergistic they are. Like if you're LPing on Blastr, you should probably also be using Hyperlock. And one of the things I'm really trying to get better at is providing LP on trading pairs. And a huge shout out to my friend Magnus from Czar and Protect, who has been an awesome sounding board for me as I try to make all of this make sense. I have a pretty solid grasp on how liquidity pools work fundamentally, but quite honestly, I've always been hesitant to explore them as a user because of things like impermanent loss, etc. But again, with Blast being my playground for learning by fire, Thruster and Hyperlock is kind of the perfect play to fuck around and find out with, since it definitely mimics the Curve Finance and Convex Finance relationship, which has paved the way in the DeFi space. So basically, you're able to take your LP positions on Thruster and then use Hyperlock to boost rewards for your participation in the Thruster liquidity pools. This is still a pretty new strategy to me, and I'm figuring out how to best use both platforms. I'm actually mainly using Pacmoon to figure out how to LP, so I think we're gonna just wait and see how this does during the next Blast Gold airdrop, and then optimize from there. Following along with the theme of learning by fire, the next platform is Mangrove. Mangrove actually caught my attention back when Blast was still in testnet. The idea for their platform and order book is to actually be able to do limit orders and trades using different liquidity sources. So let's say there was a lending protocol that I was providing liquidity on. With Mangrove, I'd be able to use my already deployed capital to fund my limit orders. I thought this idea was pretty cool, and they're actually adding more support for more liquidity sources. So far, I've really only used Mangrove to purchase some MetaStreet LCTs on Blast mainnet, but they've actually recently released their newest product, which is called Candle, and it acts as a market-making strategy. I didn't get too much Blast Gold from Mangrove on the first Blast distribution, but I think as I get the hang of Candle, I expect to be able to make a decent amount of gold, especially because I think Mangrove is wildly underfarmed. It is a much more complex product, and I think it's going to be one that's just going to provide a wealth of experience for where I'm at with my on-chain journey personally. And speaking of MetaStreet LCTs, MetaStreet is another platform I consider a core focus of Bucket One. As you guys know, I am hyper bullish on NFT finance, and MetaStreet is one of the OG NFT lending platforms on ETH mainnet. I think what they're doing with their LCTs and debt bonds is really going to lead the way for the next wave of NFT finance products. On Blast, they have a bunch of active integrations with DeFi platforms, but I do know that they are cooking something with NFTs and LCTs with their new Apollo campaign coming up. And just given the gigabrains that are on the team, I think whatever they come up with will heavily lean into this culture of hyper-financialization that is so prominent on Blast. Right now, I have about 0.8 wrapped staked ETH deployed into LCTs, which have all been bridged over to Blast. For the first gold distribution, I received about 15 Blast Gold, and I'm continuing to receive more weekly. And the last core platform for Bucket One for me is Blast Futures, which is on-chain perps. Again, I am not a trader. Your girl's a farmer. But I think futures markets are massive, and to be able to leverage trade on-chain while earning points as education to me is massive. So I actually ended up picking Blast Futures because their platform is battle tested on Starknet with RabbitX, their sister exchange. On top of that, these platforms actually share order books and liquidity, and when it comes to perps, my understanding is depth of liquidity is key. Their DMM vault is also a pretty interesting mechanism for providing liquidity on perps platforms. Unlike other perp dexes, when you provide liquidity on Blast Futures, you're actually just using USDB, so you're not running the risk of impermanent loss. Their vault is pretty interesting. I'm gonna have to go into that in a separate video, but the TLDR here is I started fucking around and finding out right before NFT NYC by depositing 2K USDB into their DMM vault. I've received a pretty decent chunk of Blast points, and then I've received about 4.5 Blast Gold from basically doing nothing and just leaving that 2K there for a few weeks. I'm really just starting to explore the trading side of things and trying to be profitable at it, so we'll see how that goes. This is a much newer farm for me, so I'm really excited to build this up over the next month or two, and you know, hopefully your girl's gonna finally have like a positive P&L for leverage trading. Like TBD, we will see. We're figuring it out. and it's gonna be a fun one. And then my secondary plays in bucket 1 include Juice Finance, NFTperp, and Kettle Finance. I'm pretty happy with my Juice Finance farm, which is really more passive than anything. I occasionally check my health factor to make sure everything is in check and that I didn't get liquidated. On NFTperp, I have liquidity deposited into their insurance fund. And then for Kettle Finance, I'm just really stoked to see RWAs start to capture this mind share in the Blast ecosystem so early on. And lending on Kettle is actually something I definitely want to do as I grow my bags. I'm personally just like not there yet, but if you guys want exposure to luxury watches, Kettle is definitely the platform to check out. And the last one I have my eye on is also an RWA platform. It's Colony. I actually have a box of One Piece trading cards sitting on my shelf, and I have to fight the daily urge to rip it open because I actually want to do it once Colony is live, so that way if I get some rare cards, hopefully a manga card, I can immediately vault that and put it on chain. And now the culture bucket. I think of these as platforms that are fostering the community and social environment of the ecosystem, and the two here are Fantasy and District 1. Fantasy, I am super stoked by. It's basically social speculation on your favorite CT influencers that's completely gamified into this online trading card experience. I've been pretty active on Fantasy Testnet, and they are just now moving over to mainnet with their Fantasy airdrop. I'm coming out of testnet with about 330,000 fan points and access to about 7 fantasy packs on mainnet launch. I think fantasy is really going to be like a chill, fun way to get exposure to Blast, and I'm probably going to put about another ETH worth of capital here once it deploys, and we'll see how it goes from there. And then you have District 1. And I am not gonna lie, I definitely mid-curved District 1 for like way longer than I should have. To be honest, it's mostly because every time I opened the app, my social anxiety would just like shoot through the roof. But thanks to the Pacmoon community, it's honestly becoming so much easier to navigate. For their first Blast Gold drop, I had a few gems and whatnot and only got about 5 Blast Gold. But this time around, I've invested a little bit into the ecosystem by picking up a Pacmoon share, and I'm logging in daily to do daily things like vote and raid for gems with the homies. So hoping this cooks harder for me on the next Blast Gold distribution. We'll see. Fingers crossed. And now for the fun bucket, the degen things. For me, this is gaming, NFTs, and community coins and meme plays. And the first one that comes to mind every time is Pacmoon. For those of you who don't know, I was rank 1 for Pacmoon Season 2, and that airdrop literally changed my life and the way that I'm able to participate on Blast. So majority of my Pacmoon is actually sitting in the Wasabi Earn Vaults, but I've started to allocate some to things like Thruster and Hyperlock and figuring out LPing. If you haven't heard of Pacmoon, definitely check them out. They're giving a masterclass on how to do social campaigns, build community, and basically to qualify for the Pacmoon airdrop, you just need to create quality content about Pacmoon and tag the account. The Pacmoon team basically acts as a filter control, and if you get a like on your post from the Pacmoon account, then your post is then eligible to earn points based on impressions. This has led to a stream of quality content that's being generated by the community of creators, and the flywheel effect of rewarding creators is so evident here. And if you're like me, where your bags are on the smaller side, Pacmoon has been an incredible way to get exposure to Blast with no cost. Once you get your pack airdrop, you can then take that and go explore other platforms on Blast to get points and gold. For me, Pacmoon is the community currency for getting Blast Gold, and I think this is going to become hyper evident given Pac-Man's comments on giving points and gold to NFTs and other Blast native assets. On the NFT side of things, I'm going to be looking for projects and platforms that are enabling NFTs that wouldn't otherwise be able to exist on other chains. This looks like platforms like Blastr, where you are able to escrow and lock up ETH for some time to mint different collections, essentially for free. And for gaming, the two platforms that I've had the most fun on and where I just truly feel like I am thriving and living my best degen life are Yolo Games and Cambria. With Yolo Games, it's been absolutely wild to degen on. They have a couple of different games live right now. You've probably seen the title game Yolo, where it's a game of chance. Everyone contributes towards a pot, and then one winner is randomly selected per round to win the entire pot. But my game of choice is Moon or Doom. It's a fast-paced game, and you're basically just betting on whether the price of ETH or BTC goes up or down in that allotted time frame. With Moon or Doom, it's actually been pretty easy to climb the ranks on the leaderboard with very little capital. I think my win-lose streak here is about 60-40, and at my peak, I was top 800 users after deploying maybe 2.5 ETH of capital into YOLO games overall. And in terms of Blast gold, the only gold I've received so far is actually 2.5 gold, and that's through their Gold Rush game. But at the end of the season, the rest of their Blast gold distribution is actually going to be allocated to the leaderboard based off of rank. And let me just say, YOLO Games has accumulated a crap ton of Blast gold if you look at the first distribution and how much they got. And I think that number is just going to go up even more. And then there's Cambria, which is just like pure nostalgia, and it's actually really fun to play. It's this PvP battling game that has like RuneScape vibes, and there are different combat modes, and some are more skill-based than others, but it's wildly fun to play something like this with on-chain stakes. On top of that, they're releasing different modes in the coming weeks, and what I love about Cambria is even though you can get absolutely wrecked in battles, like myself, you still actually have a fair chance at getting a buttload of gold, in my opinion. Basically, every battle that you wager ETH on, you're going to earn essence points, which is their equivalent of experience points. And based off of your essence points, you're actually rewarded tombs each week that you can spin to win blast charges, gacha style. So luck and RNG help even the playing field here a little bit more. Those blast charges that you get from the tombs are actually what translates into blast gold. So far, my volume on the platform is around 0.6 ETH, with my average wager per battle being anywhere from 0.005 to 0.01 ETH, and now I'm ranked in the top 800 for blast charges. And with that said, that's actually pretty much everything I'm looking at and actively participating in on Blast as of right now. It's definitely a lot, but this is why my number one tip is to just engage with platforms that you have a genuine interest in using. And of course, keep doing your due diligence. It just makes it so much easier with keeping up with all of this. And for me, I'm personally trying to stay disciplined and log into these platforms every day. And I would say as of right now, I'm hitting maybe about 80% of them on a daily basis. It's like, figure out the daily routine that works best for you and just like ride that until TGE. For me, the goal is 5K Blast Gold by TGE. So we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, let's fucking cook. Bearish or bullish, keep building, keep farming.